Well, I am Cynthia Frances Gensheimer. Today is November 12th, 2023, and I am interviewing Kay Levin Ambrose in her home in Denver, Colorado for the Denver National Council of Jewish Women Oral History Project. Good morning, Kay. I think we'll start out with a little bit of going back to your background. Were you born in Denver?
Yes, I was.
And did you spend your childhood here?
Yes, I did. Didn't move much.
Okay. Did you go to public school?
Uh-huh. Palmer Elementary, which is just a few blocks from here. Then Hill Junior High School. Do you want to know all of them?
Sure.
And then East High School.
Okay, great. And were your parents native Denverites also?
Yes, they both were.
And I know you told me that your father was Louis Levin, and how did his family come to Denver? Why did they move here? Do you know?
Well, I believe they came from the family came from Poland. I think my older uncle was born in Poland, and then I think they immigrated here. I don't know that story. Questions you should ask before your parents pass away.
Right, and you said he died young also, right? And then your mother's parents, were they born in Colorado?
No, they came from Pennsylvania. And then my grandmother had, when she was just about 20, they said you should come, because our air was considered really good at one time. And they said, she had asthma, and they said you won't live past, the doctor said you won't live past 20 if you don't move to Colorado. And so she did, and she lived till 82.
Wow, that's remarkable.
1982. No, 82 years. Get it right.
There you go. And she was not Jewish, but your father was Jewish, right? So how would you describe the way you were brought up in terms of religion?
I really wasn't. We had a menorah. We lit that. We had a Christmas tree. They really never geared me towards. They never really said why, and I never asked them.
Right. So you didn't go to Sunday school
No.
or church.
I was interested because I remember a Jewish friend of mine and I in middle school. On Sundays, I think maybe the reason was more to get together. We would go to we tried the Baha'i, we went to Baha'i, Quaker, Presbyterian, all different kinds of religions for, an hour or something.
Did anything resonate with you?
Not really. I mean, some of the minor ideas that I picked up sounded fine.
Okay. And so your father was not involved with the Jewish community at all when you were
No.
growing up. He never went to services or anything. And when you went to high school, do you think your classmates identified you as being Jewish or Christian or?
Jewish, probably.
Okay. So did you belong to a sorority in high school?
I did belong to BBG, B'nai B'rith Girls. Isn't that what it stands for?
Yes.
And I was a sweetheart.
I bet, yes. And what was your experience like at East High School?
Oh, it was pretty good. Met a great number of teachers who were fabulous.
Great. So did you experience any anti-Semitism
No,
growing
not
up?
at all.
And how did you decide? You did go to college, I presume?
Yes. Metro and UCD.
So when you were growing up, did you take piano lessons?
Yes, I did. I started at about 8 years old. And my brother and a lot of his friends, he's 4 years older, so they were taking from the same teacher. And I think that was a big influence because I wanted to play the pieces they were playing. And so I excelled pretty rapidly.
Did you go to somebody's house for lessons?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a half an hour a week or something like that?
An hour. I think I started taking, we went into, it might have been a half hour, but then we did like some theory for another half hour. I think it was about an hour, and he would have a lot of recitals.
So you got used to performing in front of
Yeah.
people in sort of a low stress environment?
Right.
And were your parents encouraging you?
Oh yeah, my dad used to bring his reel-to-reel tape recorder and tape the recitals on his reel-to-reel.
So these were lessons in classical piano?
Yes, it was all classical.
And did they listen to music, your parents, at home?
Uh-huh. And we went a lot of times to the symphony.
And at school, did you ever accompany a choir or a chorus?
I did a orchestra class in middle school. I mean, and I played the piano, duh. I guess I could, some people are multi-instrumental, but I'm not.
But that's quite a challenge for somebody that age to be able to accompany an orchestra and keep the rhythm. And I mean, I know because I'm a failed pianist.
Well, it was a pretty ragtag group, and I could be included in that ragtag.
But you didn't play piano for any school plays or anything like that?
No, I didn't, but I did. I remember at Palmer, when there's continuation, they had me play. I played a song. Me and the other girl, Susanna, so we both played something.
So you continued to take lessons through high school?
Yes.
And then when you went to college, what were you planning to study? Did you have a plan in mind when you went to college?
Yeah, but I didn't. I took some classes, theory classes, writing classes, and performance piano. But actually, then I went off on another way. I always wanted to learn jazz, and I kind of thought like you're born with that or you're not. So it took me a while, but then I found teachers that taught me jazz. And I got used to doing that. And in fact, I played with a big band called the Denver Jazz Orchestra for many years.
As an
And I
adult?
wrote some scores, and the band performed them.
Great. So as an adult, have you ever belonged to any kind of a religious congregation?
No, I never really have.
Right. And I'm curious as to how you first became involved with the National Council of Jewish Women.
It's because Toots Siegel, is she known as that, or do I have to say Lucille? She taught my daughter in kindergarten, and then she would put on the Wizard of Oz, and so then I played the piano, accompanied on the piano the kids, and then she would go to different schools to teach, and I would always play the piano for the Wizard of Oz. And then when she got ready to retire, she told me about the traveling theater, and that's when I joined the traveling theater and then played for the traveling theater.
So when you first met her, what school was your daughter going to?
Teller.
Okay. But you, it was several years later then that you became involved with the traveling theater.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you enjoy about that?
Oh, it's just really fun. The kids, got so into the music. And then I added the idea of the person would usually the musical accompanist would usually just play the music to the songs. And before the kids came in, I would play various songs and stuff. So they had that as to make it more exciting for them, I thought. And I could see it. I mean, you could see the teachers sometimes dancing a little bit, or even the kids.
That's great. So would you bring music along and play from the music, or?
I had the music for the songs, but I would just kind of improvise, or, I knew songs I could play.
So you were playing these were musicals that the Traveling Theater put on, and it was an amateur group. So how did you practice and rehearse enough to be able to perform?
Oh, for many years we rehearsed at BMH. And they had a piano there, that I could use.
And you had a regular rehearsal schedule, or?
We would do it, I think, all summer. We'd rehearse once a week. Tuesdays was always our day, the day to go out.
And then you went to the various schools on Tuesdays during the school year?
Yeah.
And do you have any particular memories that stand out of performances that the children really enjoyed, or particular days that were special in some way?
Yes, I remember one time at Colfax School, I believe it was, Toots was sleeping, or she was Dorothy. And the principal, which really helped when the principal would give a big build-up, and he did, and then, the kids were so excited, and they all were waiting in line to get autographs. I mean, this happened more than once, to get autographs from Dorothy.
Wow. So did you ever have any funny experiences where the piano was terrible, or so out of tune that you had trouble, or the cast was unresponsive to your cues, or?
No, not really, but I'm thinking of a story. It wasn't when I was in it, but there was one time that the line was, "Let the news be spread, the wicked old witch at last is dead." But instead, the person said, "Let the Jewish news be spread, at last the wicked old witch is dead."
That's great.
And there was another time that the wicked old witch didn't show up, she was running late or something. And so I was at the piano and I played "Ding Dong, the witch is dead." And then I ran up on the stage, put on the cape and the hat, and I go, "Surrender, Dorothy." And then I went back down to the piano.
Oh, no. So you had to be quick on your feet.
Right, and I was quick on my feet then.
That's great. So the kids learned how to be a good audience, and they were very appreciative at the end. And you showed me a whole stack of thank you notes. I should have had these at the ready, but different kinds of notes that students. Was it typical to get thank you notes?
Oh yeah, we asked them to. We used to say, we have a big scrapbook, and write something you liked about the play or write something you didn't like. So then kids would go like, "Well, I didn't like it." And we're like, "Okay, just write something that you liked about the play." But I remember Bernice Cogan, who was big in Traveling Theater. She did an original that she wrote called "Strawberry Shortcake," and it was basically to tell the message was you can be anything you want to be. And I think this was during the time, it must have been during the time of Clinton. And so one of the girls wrote, "I want to be president when I grow up." And she drew and a lot of the kids were really good drawers too. And she drew a picture of a voting booth, and then it showed Clinton, and then there was another level for whatever her name was, like another lever that she could have pulled.
Wow. That's very inspiring. So do you think that you inspired any of the children to go into music or theater?
I'm sure Toots said she had lots of students that she knew of that went into theater.
Yeah, that's great. And did you visit all of the schools in Denver, or?
Well, when I first started with it, I wasn't doing all the stuff I ended up doing, but we would have 2 different shows. Toots probably told you that. And so there'd be one show one week and then another show the next week with a different pianist. And so the schools really welcomed us, but it started getting harder to get the schools. They're so busy, they wouldn't have 20 minutes a year to do the play or anything.
So the schools the plays were relatively short?
They might go as much as 30 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was smart. You kept the attention of the students then, right?
And I understand, but from Bernice, there were about 5 groups that would do plays. And then it ended up, we were the only ones that were still going around. And we brought, at one point, we had very elaborate set. Toots probably showed you pictures of the sets. She got some fantastic sets done, and costuming, as you saw from Toots.
And were you the ones who had to transport the sets to the schools?
No, they had somebody else. And in fact, my partner Joe, he would do that a lot of times because they had big, heavy sets that had to be moved. And then at one time, I don't know what it was, but in the latest incarnation of the thing, of the plays, they just did a screen and drew it like the Wizard of Oz, drew the yellow brick road, so it got really primitive at the end.
So how did your role with the group evolve over time?
I don't know, but yeah, it ended up, I was just coming with my music and playing. I'd show up at the school, and then I guess because people dropped out or people retired, I ended up being on the chairman committee or whatever, so I'd be part of, me and Bernice would try to call the schools, get the schools, and then I'd have to, you didn't have to, before you didn't have to call the school to say we're coming again, they'd know that we were coming. Then you'd have to call them, you have to have a piano, yeah, we have a piano, and then they wouldn't have it on, or they might have it up on the stage or something instead of like down below where it should have been. And then I ended up somehow carrying all the props. I'd have great big bags that I'd be lugging around with the witch's broom, the hats for the, whatever. So the extra things, somehow I would end up carrying them.
So did you ever have a piano that wasn't fit to play?
Oh yeah, a lot of them. But it was enough that I could play it. I mean, you could kind of get the tune out. In fact, more often, the pianos, they have that joke, PSO, piano-shaped object.
That's great. So while you were doing this, you had a daughter you were bringing up, and did you start teaching piano lessons privately when your daughter was young?
Even before she was born, I was doing that some and working. I worked in the brokerage field a lot. And
I didn't understand that. What did you work at?
the brokerage,
Oh, okay.
like stocks and commodities.
So you were selling stocks and
No,
commodities?
I got my license, but I didn't want to be in sales. And so I did something called the wire operator. And before they had the guys or ladies do their own orders, they would enter them with the wire operator, and then you had to pay attention to make sure they did it right. Didn't ask for the wrong stock or something, because they made lots of mistakes.
So you would work a regular job 9 to 5, and then in the evenings you would teach piano? How did you fit that into your life?
Well, working in the stock market, and then commodities opened even earlier. So I'd work from 6 to 2:30 was my regular time working. And so then I'd have time in the afternoons, or probably mostly just afternoons. And later on I worked into some evenings, piano lessons. And then eventually I was doing piano lessons at Aurora Cultural and Arts. And then they had keyboard classes with 10 to 12 students in each class. And I teach adults and kids. And
Did you find that a gratifying career?
oh, very gratifying. And that's kind of how I would get, I mean, I wouldn't ask them to do that, but the best ones would ask if I would teach privately. So I still have a couple of those fabulous, that I started at like 6 and now they're like 15 and 16 right now.
So you're able to take students to whatever level they can aspire to.
Even though now after my stroke, I can't play with both hands that well, like I could, but my right hand's fine. But anyway, I can still demonstrate to them how to play, and they still want to take with me.
That's a remarkable comeback. What year did you say you had
2017.
was when you had your stroke? And how did you go about becoming rehabilitated enough to be able to play the piano again?
Well, I guess part of it was, I mean, when I, had the stroke, I couldn't sit up, I couldn't do anything, I had to, but little by little I learned, and then I could still play. I couldn't keep my left hand even on the keyboard. And then eventually I got where I could do that. And then I made a better recovery with being able to play some with my left hand.
So you had occupational therapy during this time?
Mm-hmm.
And you were a relatively young woman when you had that stroke, too.
Not by not by the great assistance standards, but I was 61.
So did you ever get involved in any other National Council of Jewish Women projects?
Oh yes, I was. I was on the committee for traveling theater, and then also when Toots was president, she had me help with. She did a gala in 2008, and I was on that. And then we did a lot of time planning meetings and sampling the food, whatever people do to plan a gala. So.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I have photos on my phone of some of that went on, because I got a photographer to take pictures of them.
So, of everything that you've done with NCJW, what would you say you're proudest of?
I think it would be the piano playing.
And when you think back about the traveling theater, how would you say it's had an impact on the community?
Oh, I think it's been great. I guess they said they would do up to 10,000 students a year. Barbara will probably talk about that. But
in other words, 10,000 students a year saw the performances that you did?
And like I said, when they very first started, they could call the night before, and the schools would be so excited. Sure, come on down, and they'd have things to eat. They'd have a dressing room for them. And then it got to be like, you want to change you can change your clothes in the bathroom or something. It kind of faded out. And then I think that's due to all the testing and stuff that teachers were having to think about.
Right. And who were the NCJW members who impressed you most over the years?
Oh, there's so many, but I know that Marilee Wallach, she was very instrumental in starting the theater. Toots's mother is credited with starting the theater, but it was Marilee, who was actually a professional actress. She did plays at Bonfils Theater. She did some at Elitch Gardens, and so she went out. She would deliver the sets and take them to the schools and do all of it pretty much and act.
So did she bring the concept with her did she learn about it from someplace else or some other organization that was doing something like traveling
I think
theater?
it was traveling, or NCJW in Chicago, and they traveled there, Toots's mother and Marilee and another lady named Billy, who was she had an all-girls band or something, and she was really good. And I think she had something to do it, but she never performed in the theater. So when they first started, it was just puppets or something, and then they got into the live theater instead.
But they never, did you ever have children perform with you?
No, we never did.
And in terms of your own life, what sort of difference has NCJW made over the years?
Oh, it's been huge because, I've made good friends with so many of the members.
Terrific. Well,
so really, Toots is a big, I always tell her, because if not for Toots, I wouldn't have known about traveling theater.
Right, and I'm sure your contribution was essential as the pianist. I can't imagine a musical without a pianist.
Right. Well, that's what sometimes now they do. They just play a recording or something.
It's not the same.
No, not at all, because if people make a mistake, you're there to slow down the music or whatever, start it back up.
Right. Did you ever sing?
No. As you can tell by my voice, that's a good thing.
Well, great. Thank you very much. It's been a big pleasure to get to know you a little bit better and learn about your experiences with NCJW.
You're welcome.